It's Friday, which means it's Austin, and he's going to be spitting facts for couples to help their marriage. So, welcome to the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. Always love having you, Austin.
Thank you.
For now.
Let's see.
Hey, you guys are funny. Spitting fast, Nick.
I'm sure people are like, "Oh my heck, Nick." Yeah, let's just hear Amy. Nick, you keep your mouth shut. So,
Not true.
no, it's fun. We love doing this. We love getting a bunch of feedback from people as well, which we do often. And so today we're going to tackle a pretty common, I think, subject, but a subject that a lot of people go through. And I would even say we go through. We've gone through. Yeah,
Go through.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It affects a lot of people. So, what are we going to be talking about, babe? You threw this one together?
You did.
Well, we kind of joint teamed it, and then
I took it a different direction.
you took it a different direction. That's right.
That happens. Nick's like, let's talk about obligatory sex and why it affects both people. I'm like, let's talk about why it starts to feel like obligatory sex. Okay.
Quick.
Now let's do it.
We understand that this goes both ways, that I don't know, you had a statement that you had written down that said something about like husbands start to feel the shame, the guilt for asking, for always initiating, and then the wives are feeling like when there's always initiating and pressure that kills the sex drive. So obviously there's like two major sides to this obligatory sex, and let's just maybe dive in.
Well, and I'm sure Austin deals with this in his sleep, right? This is
Okay.
probably such a common problem that couples come to him that
Austin's like,
that
I just so
mismatch.
much to say.
It's interesting because I often see couples once obligatory sex has broken them, if I'm honest with you, right? It's
Yeah.
like down the road a lot of times, and you're like they're sharing how they got these struggles now, and I wouldn't say it all started with obligatory sex, but that was present, right? That was something that often they both push through. That I mean, it damaged their relationship. It caused a divide, and so something meant to be, beautiful and connecting, and ideally an expression of we're already connected. Now let's go to the bedroom. It often becomes this massive source of pain and disconnect and heartache for both. And I would say one of the biggest challenges is on a we call it a somatic level, like the physical body. Like for a woman, if she's let's kind of the stereotypical, which it does go the other way, but if a woman's pushing past like okay, I'll show up, but I don't want to be here. It's like a double negative where it's like yeah, I'm present, but I'm bypassing my own oftentimes emotional needs to be present for you, and I can't really enjoy it even if I enjoy it physically because I just bypassed all of my own needs. A lot of women do that to be loving, to be kind. A lot of women unfortunately do it to regulate his emotions, to so he's not angry. Like, and a lot of men feel that, right? It's like you're not here because you love me. A lot of men aren't aware that you're here because I you don't want me to be angry or whatever, right? And so it creates all this, let's call it subconscious damage, because they're having sex, they're having orgasms, they're having endorphins and everything that comes with intimacy, but they're both actually feeling, let's call it the pain of disconnect while being sexual. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And so for a lot of men, and again, this goes both ways, but a lot of men in this situation, they're doing a sexual act while feeling rejected, even though their wife's there. And a lot of women are feeling used, is typically the language I hear, right? They don't feel valued for their spirit, their mind, their contributions, right? They feel like kind of all you want is my body. And the challenge is they're both missing that it's meant to be connection, and most men really want that deep connection. They want her to be present, they want her to be engaged. We know this. Most men don't know how to do the emotional, spiritual intimacy component. And women can show up for the sexual, but only so long when their emotional and spiritual needs aren't met. Then, literally, like I see women like, I can't be sexual anymore. Like that's shut off, broken, something to that effect. And it can escalate to the point where like sexuality is now traumatic instead of, bonding. And it's unfortunate and it's sad and it happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned what you mentioned because, Amy and I have the benefit of just getting tons of emails and messages. I mean, we hear everything, right? Like it's kind of like we can do polls and take everything in and kind of know what the most common thing is. And we hear from so many men that, or so many wives that, oh, my husband just wants sex, right? And that's what we hear from the wives is he just wants me for my body and just wants sex. And the men are saying the opposite. They're like, you know, the men don't want to just have sex. They want to have connection. They want to feel desired. And so we hear both sides of those things. And I really believe, and I've said this before, if it was all a physical thing for men, they could go take care of themselves and they would never need their wife, right? But they don't want to do that, right? There's a reason they don't want to do that because it's so much more than the physical. It's an emotional, it's spiritual, there's so many things tied to that.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I see this progression, like where guys in their 20s and 30s, typically it's like this insatiable high drive, and they want connection, but they think and feel like they truly feel like they feel the most connected during sex. And so it's like this consistent like pressure for them, which feels like pressure to the wife. And I think a lot of that comes from let's call it underdeveloped sexuality. There's not a lot of training in the world around developing sexuality for men or women. But I see men kind of mid 30s, their libido, as we call it, starts to tame a little bit, and they become much more aware of, I don't want to be sexual if you're not here. Now they'll still take it typically, okay, but they don't really want that. They become aware that like the physical thing is not what I'm after here. And a lot of times at that point, I mean, people get married in their 20s, you have 10 to 15 to 20 years of damage already, which a wife has felt in her body and he's felt in his body. And so I want to talk a little bit about maybe let's talk about prevention for couples that are experiencing that, and then maybe a little bit about repair for couples who have experienced it to a point where they're not being sexual anymore, which happens a lot. So if people are currently in that, when I talk about this idea of like sexual development, it's not quote unquote how do we have better sex. It's like getting in tune with yourself sexually. Like what helps me feel sexual. What helps me enjoy sexuality. That's expanded beyond like the physical, like sexual acts. So for a wife, being able to like just own, like I don't feel sexual if I feel really busy. I don't feel sexual if the house is a wreck. I don't feel sexual, whatever, on the beach, like whatever. Like get in tune with where it's not going to work, but then what does help. I feel, sexual when I choose to, dress up a little bit if you like that, or I need a massage first, like, right? Like, and some of this should be, I would say, explored as a couple. When we do repair work, which I'll talk more about in a second, a lot of times we're trying to help couple kind of reset sexually and like go on an adventure together, like explore, like, hey, what do you like? What don't you? And the reality is for a lot of men, it's kind of this like men will be kind of more adventurous sexually in many ways, but they also typically want like, how does it work every time where she'll just show up, right? And I think after working with hundreds of women around sexuality and hundreds of men, I often tell couples like enter into each sexual experience not exactly knowing where you're going. Don't make the end goal orgasm, make the end goal pleasure and connection. And that's going to be different for women a lot of the times, right? Where if she feels safe enough and he's responsive enough, he doesn't have to know a system of what works every time. It's actual intimacy in the moment. So today, let me into your sexuality. What do you want today, right? We talk about this all the time. Into me, see.
Mm-hmm.
So when a woman pushes past her her mind and her body sexually, she's rarely going to connect to her own wants and needs emotionally, spiritually, or even physically. Okay. If she can communicate, hey, I'm not feeling sexual right now, but here's what will allow me to be willing to become sexual. And then he's willing to say, hey, I want this to be meaningful for you. Let's interact as we go. Then she's not leading it. She is sharing her needs, and then he's leading her into pleasure, into intimacy. And that's a skill set that, like, I don't know where you learn that unless you study sexuality, right? And it's an unfortunate part of our culture is, like, people aren't really talking about sex except for Ultimate Intimacy podcast and places like that. But if I go back for a minute, the obligatory sex thing, um, I mean, most couples get married and they have desire, right? They're in a scenario where, and I know we're talking to couples in second marriages, third marriages, first marriages, not marriage, all that type of thing, right? But a lot of couples, they get married and they're sexual and they don't have kids yet, or they don't have pressures yet. They don't have all the to-do list stuff. And it's easier to feel desire. And then life starts to happen. It's like, we got all this stuff and it becomes hard to manage that. And I typically see two people where it's like, you're carrying heavy burdens, like both of you in different ways, and you're both exhausted and overextended. And so we often have to, like, make room, not first for intimacy, but for, I'm going to call it peace, right? Where it's just like you can see each other, like, hey, what's going on for you? I got all this stuff going on and I'm stressed out and I'm excited and whatever, right? And I think if couples can see each other in those ways first, it doesn't have to be a big, deep emotional conversation about a bunch of struggle. It just has to be like, I see you and what's going on for you and I care. And then being able to share how the other's presence can help, whether that's, conversation, it's date night, it's, affection, it's intimacy, like, but most people that I see, at least therapeutically, they're using sex to try to deal with everything else, and specifically men. And then women are typically either using social media or relying on others that aren't their husband for their emotional needs, because it's like they can't reach each other, right? And so you see this common pattern where both are turning elsewhere. That can be all sorts of things: affairs, pornography, social media, friends, like, and the marriage bond gets neglected. And then they often use sex kind of as the last effort. Like, this is the only way we can connect, but we're not actually connecting. It's like a pseudo connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I have a couple come in where they haven't, like, they have a sexless marriage where they haven't been sexual for a long time, or it's sporadic, or they're being sexual but it's just like obligatory sex, right? Oftentimes what I go through, this is kind of the repair concept, is learning to, one, we got to know what's going on with your body around sexuality. And it's pretty easy to tell, because when you start to talk about their sex life, emotions immediately come up. It's like, okay, just talking about sex brings up all this hurt and pain and anxiety and frustration and old wounds, and that time you did that and that time you weren't available, right? Like, all that comes up. And it's like, having more sex is not going to repair that. Like, having, a great, one-time session of intimacy doesn't erase all the past. And so guiding couples through some understanding, some expressing, empathy, like, and the idea with empathy, it's not just understanding, it's, can I, like, let myself feel the pain of what you're feeling, about a past situation, or the pressure, or on both sides. What was it like to feel rejected? What was it like to feel pressured, right? And, like, have that compassion and that empathy. And then a real desire to show love again, right? When someone's hurt, it's like, I love you, but I don't like you. I hear that kind of language, right? And if you can understand that probably your spouse wasn't trying to hurt you on both sides. Both of you, I often say, you didn't know how to get it right, so you didn't get it right. And can you both have compassion that like two lost, not the other one, and right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of times the partner who's having obligatory sex, they often feel like it was at their expense, right? And that makes sense. Like I gave you what you wanted, and the other person's like, you didn't give me what you wanted. I gave you what you wanted, which was disconnection, is what they often feel. And so it's like, yeah, we brought our bodies together, but we didn't make love. We didn't have intimacy. And I often say, you both are losing. Like, sex is from God. It's meant to be beautiful. We have to learn how to how to make it godly, let's call it, right? Mutually beneficial. But it's yours. It's not his. It's not hers. It's yours, and you can discover how to enjoy it. And I think, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot, you guys, but
Oh, that's great.
You got good words.
I think one of the big challenges for a lot of couples is there's a lot of value, especially for, let's call it, high desire, high libido people, like to go, okay, I have desire. What's causing that desire? And it should be love, like that. Like that should be the operating reason for sexuality, not my biology, not have an erection, not
Yeah.
it's been 2 days or whatever. Like, yeah, you're gonna feel sexual for those reasons, but like learning to release those things, or kind of deal with that in other ways. And when you're coming to your spouse, it's not like I need sex. It should be I would love to connect with you. I'd love to give you pleasure. I'd love to help you get to a place where you want to be there. What would help that? And if there's not the urgency for sex from the physiological or emotional side, then you can bond with each other, on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then make love on Thursday, and then bond on Friday, and then, right, like it can be this like progressive thing. But most couples, it's like disconnect, work really hard to connect sexually, disconnect, work really hard, right? And so I often help couples like, okay, you get to this place of connection. How do you maintain that
Yeah.
where it's not constant sexuality, but it is constant connection? That then when the approach for sex is there again, it's not like, well, we're disconnected. I don't want you, and we got to work towards it. And that's a process. That's introspection from both. That's understanding. And I see this all the time with both spouses. Like we'll go through a process and I'll ask certain questions and I'll hear both of them like, I didn't realize this about myself. I didn't know this was happening. Like, and I see this now. And it's like, we're so busy and fast paced that most people are just operating from impulse or reaction or right stress. And it's like really like therapy helps you like take that time to go, oh, what's actually happening here? How did we get here? And I would say more importantly, where do you want to go next? And so I don't spend a ton of time really in like, how did you get here? Like we're
Yeah.
going to focus on
Next.
you
Yeah.
go there. Yeah, exactly. So any thoughts or questions on any of that?
We're just talking about that, like we're intimate and then we're disconnected for a few days and then we're intimate again. Do you feel like that, and I know it goes both ways, it's a two-sided deal, but do you feel like the higher drive or typically the husband can do a better job like after intimacy of giving that non-sexual touch the next couple days instead of just when he wants it? Because we hear from a ton of women, and when we do post videos about that or reels or whatever, the women are like, "Oh my gosh, like that's so annoying because you can touch your wife." I mean, I'm not a physical touch, so it doesn't really apply to us. But like, I don't need to be all. I don't need to. I'm not talking to you. Nick's like, "Are you talking to me?"
No,
No,
I was like, yeah, she's not
no, I'm
talking.
not. No, I just like the average woman that loves physical touch doesn't just want it the day that he wants it, and that's where that disconnect. There's lots of different reasons there would feel like from that disconnect after being intimate. But one of those big ones is that touch, that physical touch, that if a wife is a physical touch person,
He
we
only
need,
touches me when he wants something.
yeah, like that is going to feel like you
Right.
just want my body. You just want to give me what I need when you need what you need. Like that's when it starts to feel obligatory to women.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's probably some value in a light touch on love, right? What does it mean to love someone versus need someone, right?
Right.
Versus let's even say lust, right? And so I think where a lot of people around sexuality and just life in general, like I said, they're operating from, let's call it the subconscious mind just running the show. It's not a lot of conscious thought. So couples know what each other want and need. Like you've heard it, I don't know, 5,000 times, right? What happens is if for example a wife's emotional needs are met, she typically doesn't next feel sexual. She might feel open to it, but a lot of times she's like, hey, I'm good, like we're connected, I
My
don't need it.
bucket's full. Yeah.
Right. Similar thing on the flip side, a lot of times men have sex, they have that release, they feel connected, and they're not then going, how do I connect emotionally more, right? Their bucket's full also. This is where I think love and like, hey, I'm invested in a person, I'm invested in a relationship comes into play, where it's not just I approach this relationship when I need something. I'm invested in this relationship every day, right? And I'm proactively thinking, how can I show love today? Not when do I meet the baseline needs? When I like invest in like working with a couple where there's been a lot of destruction, right? I'm often saying, I want to help you build a marriage where you're not just meeting needs. Let's build a marriage that you both want, right? The idea would be I would like to be in a relationship with somebody that likes me enough to like want to make things joyous for me. If you're both doing that and you're setting aside time to like listen to each other, to be proactive, then you're going to have a great relationship. But if it's kind of like, yeah, I'm married, but it's not really my priority, all these thousand other things come before my spouse. And this happens exactly both ways, right? It's like,
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I just had sex. Now I'm going to go, neglect everything at the house and I'm going to go, whatever.
Yeah.
Your spouse is going to feel that. And so I really believe that marriage, your relationship with your spouse, it should be the priority. Um, Kids often get put ahead of this, which they are more demanding, they have more needs. But if we put the order in place, like husbands and wives don't, if they're really pouring into each other, you don't need like 60 hours a week, like to meet each other's
Oh, yeah.
needs.
20 minutes a day.
Right. You meet each other's needs, you feel close, you're a team, you enjoy the things that you do together, and then you have energy for the kids and the work and the hobbies and the all the stuff, right? And so we often get it, flipped upside down. And so I use this language with couples where I often say, what is the type of marriage and life you want? How do you want to show up with your kids? We often need to do what I call a restructuring. Like, okay, everybody has the same amount of time. Where's time being wasted? Where's time being, misused or whatever that doesn't benefit you? Let's start to reorganize in a way that one, each of you can get in tune with, let's call it your best self. That takes some time. And then how do we bring it together and how often and in what ways? And if you find the balance of, how do we feel the most connected, whether that's, you go out and have fun together, you do something spiritual together, you know, have a meaningful conversation, there's different ways to connect, and I think all of them can be in place, right? So
Yeah.
Yep.
other
Well,
thoughts?
whereas men and women are so different, I think one of the things that happens, and of course we're talking about obligatory, but I think one of the things that happens is, we only know what we know, right? So, as a husband standpoint, I'm looking at things from my perspective. A woman's standpoint, she's looking at things from her perspective. And it's so hard to find that balance because we look at things completely different. I think one of the important things is, and we've done this in our marriage, is Amy's really tried to understand why I'm built the way I do, why I think the way I do, why I act the way I do, and vice versa. And I'm not gonna sit here and say I will ever understand how she feels or she'll understand how I feel, but we at least put forth some effort and try rather than just say
You're too different. Yeah.
he's like this and she's like this, and that's, we kind of do that in the world, right? That's just the way women are, and that's just the way men are, and therefore that's the way it's going to be. I mean, kind of like, oh, if everyone, when you get married, the sex stops, right? For those couples that do that before they get married. But I think trying to understand where each other's coming from and having those discussions can be a great benefit as well too.
Yeah, I'll end with this. The language we did an episode on this recently, but the language of like two become one, right? And this idea of becoming one, it's how do I see this other person as like we're a thing now, right? It's not divided anymore. And so if you have wants and needs, like those are my wants and needs. And if I have wants and needs, same thing if each of you brings struggle from the past in, or right, couples face things all the time that you didn't plan on. It's like, well, one of you got cancer. We didn't know that that was going to happen and it was going to affect us both, but we're here and we're gonna face it together. And so I think one of the biggest dangers and one of the reasons obligatory sex happens is I think I think a lot of couples, both men and women, enter in and they feel like there's this expectation, and that now because we're married, I have to, right? Like be yours. That's not why you chose to be together. You didn't have to. You chose. And I think a lot of times when couples get married or they live in, it's like, oh well, now I have to. So I would encourage couples to like have open dialogue of like, hey, I want to be intimate with you because I love you. This isn't a have to
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work for people to reduce their expectations because we have them in different ways. But that feels more to me like now you're my servant, then you're my lover, my partner. And so releasing expectations, and for the high desire, like I'm gonna say, earn it, right? Like pour into the spouse and help them want to be intimate with you. Same thing on the flip side. Pour in with love and affection and intimacy, and then communicate. Like for me to show up this way, I need this stuff. And I think it will. Now I think it works better. I see that all the time. So
Yeah, totally. I feel like we need a part two because I didn't get to my.
Let's just keep going.
Let's do a part two.
Yeah.
Next week.
Sounds
Let's talk about like what makes it feel like this next
okay,
week.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
well. We appreciate you being on with us, Austin, and until next time, we'll do part two.